Now today I have another video regarding the newly released Imola circuit, and this one is going to be a track guide and also a setup video, and just basically pointing out tips and tricks on how to be very fast at this track. So hopefully you guys like the sound of that, and we're going to basically analyze my best time trial lap so far around the circuit and give you guys some pointers, indicators and just tips in terms of what to do, what not to do, and how to be fast around this track. So if you guys like the sound of that, I did it at Portimao a month ago. If you haven't seen that video, leave a link up in the top right. And if you guys are going to enjoy this video, leave a like, subscribe for more, and let's jump into it. First of all, we're going to look at the setup. Now at any point you guys can pause the video here and make sure you write down the setup for this track. It's not the best, but it's what I found worked for me. Just make sure to reduce the tyre pressures for the race if overheating issues occur. Now before we jump into the lap breakdown, let's talk about the lap I did. So it was a 1 minute 13.8. If you look at the bottom, the theoretical best was a 7, and to be fair, I think there was even a 6 in it, to be honest with you, because a lot of the sectors that I did that were personal bests sometimes didn't even count because I didn't cross the finish line, or I invalidated, or I started the lap again and I didn't actually make it. Sometimes I even had sectors that were incomplete, which were even faster, but I made a mistake before I got to the split, so there was no point in continuing. So yeah, worth noting, there's probably like a mid-6, 113.65 I'd say, overall pace wise in my lap, but obviously I couldn't quite get it all together. Also worth noting, this is on equal cars. The fastest lap has been set on realistic performance, and it does seem like, apparently from what I've heard, the Red Bull on realistic performance is actually faster than on equal performance in time trial, so that also explains a bit of the lap time loss. But with that said, let's move into the lap. So here we are then, starting the lap, and I'm currently on my editing software, so I'm going to kind of make sure I match up the edit to what I'm saying. But the final two corners, it doesn't really matter, especially the penultimate one, what you do. It's all about the final corner and getting a great exit. So for the start of the lap, you need to be, on this right curb quite a lot. Then make sure your exit is not like mine, which was quite poor, getting a big bit of oversteer. Now the first bit of detail on the lap, I would say for a time trial for the race, this isn't important, but for a hot lap it is. Bring the car over to the left and make sure you start the lap on the left curb on the main straight just before the DRS gets enabled, because that way it's going to help you minimize steering lock and also turn the car just enough to keep it super tight to the right hand side pit wall all the way down up until the track opens up after the finish line. We then make our way down to turn 1, the Tamburello chicane. Make sure you're super tight on the left on the straight, basically trying to minimize meters, and then we arrive at the first corner and the first curb on the outside right. You want to brake at about, I'd say, 85 meters to 80 meters. I've taken the freeze frame here at about that distance. So we're just starting to make our way onto the Italian flag curb, if you will. Important now, once we get off the gas and start putting the brake on, that we go as wide as possible. And you'll see how I pause the frame on the red, which is where I'm on, that very outside part of the curb. You want to turn in, and it's important to avoid the sausage curbs. I know on console you can drive on these, but on PC at least it's not the best way to go about it. So if we pause the frame, you can see here I'm right on the inside curb on the red bit, but not touching the sausage curb, which is very, very important. And for this corner, I tried 4th gear, but 5th gear seems to work better. It's a bit more challenging to get the line right, but if you manage it, it's going to be a lot more effective for you. So definitely try to take it in 5th gear if possible. If not, use 4th for the left-hander, and then a short shift to 5th going into the right, which follows up. Now for this one, similar kind of story here. You want to be on the red stuff, but not on the sausage curb. I'm even actually slightly on the next bit of inside green, which is just before the sausage curb. We get away with it, and then on the exit, you'll see, again, right on the limit of the red stuff, pretty much brushing the grass, but trying to make sure we carry that speed. This entire sequence is taken in 5th gear, and then for the next left-hander we shift up to 6th to get good drive out of there. Important to use all the runoff again on the exit. You can use as much curb as you like. Sometimes you can get away with using any curb whatsoever. So that's the Variante Tamburello, as we now run down to the Variante Villeneuve. So we approach the corner, once again same concept as the previous chicane. You want to bring the car onto the tri-coloured curb, and you want to brake, I'd say for this one, about the 45 to 40 meter region, you don't need to brake a lot. It's just a little bit of brake, about 25 to 30%, just to slow the car down a little bit and enable a bit of rotation from the back end to help you turn into the corner. The idea here is to run it super tight to the left and be pretty much in line with the white line on the left to then square off the following right. Now, there's a bit of a trick here and a bit of a key element. You need to try and make sure that you run the car in line with the white line on the left, which enables you to straight line brake it. By doing that, you can brake a lot more effectively. And for this next right-hander, I've found that it's not all about speed. It's about precision and making sure your exit is good. Now, for this one, I actually got away with this. I went over the sausage curbs and they didn't seem to upset the balance of the car. Generally, it's a bit of a lottery, so I would advise keeping the same concept as before, which is staying on the red bit of the curb and not touching the yellow sausage curb. And this one, I turned in basically a bit too early. So ideally, you want to turn in a bit later, enable some rear braking rotation by playing around with the brakes, and make sure you get the red curb, and then try to drive off that corner nice and cleanly. Keep it within track limits. They're very strict on this corner, especially on PC. For this sequence, 5th gear seems to work best. 4th gear seems to lose a bit too much speed. So take it in 5th and make sure your exit is good as we go down to the Variante Tosa. Now, it's worth noting that Delta have actually lost a bit of time through that previous chicane. So again, kind of reaffirming that I lost a bit of lap time, because heading into the right-hander before I touched the sausage curb, I was 2 and a bit tenths up, and I'm now only currently 1.7, so I've lost about half a tenth. Now, into the Variante Tosa, you want to brake at about, I'd say 60 meters or 65 meters. Bring the car to the left. I don't think the line matters too much into this corner. There is a lot of understeer. You can go in quite wide and then come back for a late apex, or you can go in super early, and if you get the braking right and get the rotation, you can go in quite tight. So I don't think it matters what line you take. All you need to do though is make sure you take 3rd gear and then short shift to 4th on the apex, because the drive out of here is very, very important because you're uphill. So you need to maximize kilometers in terms of straight line speed as much as possible. So you'll see here as we go on the exit, the idea is to straight line the exit. So you're going to drive on purpose onto the curb to make the track as straight as possible and as wide as possible, and enable you to get traction down as quickly as possible. Making our way up the hill then, out of the hairpin, with hopefully some decent straight line speed, you arrive at turn 9, the blind left-hander. You see it at the very last minute, Piratella. Now for this one, you want to brake just after the 50. We're talking about 45 meters to the corner. We are right on the white line on entry. You can see here on the right-hand side. Now I do make a bit of an error by picking up some understeer, not turning in quite as early as I would have liked. And in hindsight, I got the throttle down a bit too soon. What you want to be doing here, you'd want to be right on the red stuff. Dare I say, you can actually take the sausage curb here. They're not that aggressive compared to the other ones, but the ideal line is going to be on the red, possibly even on the inside bit of the green, heading into the secondary part of the apex. For this one, 5th gear works best, but you're literally doing 5th for a split second for a bit of rotation, and you're quickly back up to 6th. On the exit, try to keep it in track limits. I'm right on the white line here. It's literally right on the limit. Try to avoid that invalidation, which in real life, was a big issue as well. And the idea of this is to carry all the speed down the hill into Acqua Minerale. Now, I don't find it super important to be on the left curb here. I don't think it gains you any time or any track space. You want to be flat out all the way through the first apex, and then I'd say about 60-75 meters from the next sharp right, you want to start putting the brakes on. The idea is to get through the first apex flat out and get the car straightened up before you start to brake. Full brake, nice and straight, and then at the last minute you turn into the apex. Now, for console compared to PC, this corner is a bit different. So on console you can take a lot of inside curb and be right on the red stuff. I find on PC, the way the car and the track works with the setup, you want to avoid the apex. You don't quite want to hit it, because basically what you're doing is you're avoiding the sharpest point of elevation change and you're running on the smoother part of the track, which in turn means a more consistent experience. The car will be a lot smoother and will behave a lot better, and it means you can get the power down and square off the exit a lot better. Again, we're right on the white line here of the exit of Acqua Minerale, so very important detail there I find, and that helps me find lap time. So Once that's done, you make your way onto this little short back straight and we approach the chicane. And this is the key part of the lap as well, because you may have nailed every single corner up until this point, but this one's going to test you. So on entry, the idea is to not take this corner like a traditional every other corner. Now what I mean by that is you don't want to go in with a very wide entry and then try to, you know, negotiate the chicane like a regular chicane. What works for this one is to launch the car over the curbs. So in other words, you want to brake at about 60 meters on corner entry, try to roll the car onto the curb early and then turn in super soon. You can see here we're already turning in before the black shadow on the track, so some very early turning going on here. And the idea is to cut the first right as much as possible without invalidating. So I find the limit here is your right wheel still on the yellow curb. That's the limit the game seems to accept. Your front right wheel for that matter, you need to be right on that curb because you're going to find the maximum lap time. If you look at my inputs, I'm currently not doing anything. The car is just rolling through. Now what you're going to do is, once you get over the right and the car is back on the tarmac and stable, you turn the wheel left, and at the same time you're going to put a little bit of brake on, about 35%. And similar to previously in the lap around the Variante Villeneuve, the idea here is to enable some rotation mid-corner in between apexes. What that means is the car's going to rotate a lot more effectively. Again, for the left-hander, don't cut it as much as the previous one. You will get invalidated. So for me, I seem to find keeping your right wheel on the green part of the curb seems to achieve that. And once you get that little bit of braking action, if the car is stable enough, get on the power as soon as possible and use every bit of the runoff curb and short shift if necessary. You can drag this curb on as long as you like, all the way down to where the grass appears, and you want to carry that speed all the way down into the final two corners, Rivazza 1 and Rivazza 2. So the first one, there's no brake marker boards, so it's very hard to find a reference here for this corner. And to be honest with you, you're going to have to really guess it. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality. There's no trick. It's one of them ones where it's going to test your reflexes and your instinct. As a driver, I would say, if I've run the frame back a little bit, there is a Rolex board on the right. So not the last one, the penultimate one. Once you've gone past that, I would say you need to start considering your braking. It's somewhere in between the two Rolex boards. You need to find what works best for you. For me personally, it's about, I'd say 75 to 80 meters before the apex. It's a downhill braking, so locking up is very easy, so you have to take that into account when it comes to braking. I tried to get the heavy bit of the braking done early and then release the brake into the corner so that we don't lock up the left front. You can probably take a bit more curb through here. Again, you want to make sure your left front is on the red stuff, not on the green. I don't find that works on PC to find you time. And then on the exit, again, similar story, keep it on the white line. Don't run out of track limits. This is right on the edge of what is legal in the game. Any more than this and you will get invalidated. And then for the final corner, it's all about getting that momentum. So corner entry in fourth, I actually short shift to fifth very early before you even got to the apex. It's literally a fourth gear downshift to get the nose in, and then we're quickly up to fifth. And I take the corner in fifth gear on the red bit of the curb once again, avoiding the sausage and then using all the runoff. And in the process, I get a bit of oversteer again, just like at the start of the lap, which cost me a little bit of time. And then pretty much for the run to the line, keep it as super close to the right as possible without invalidating. And that is going to be a lap of Imola, a 1:13.869. So there's the detailed run through. Bit more time in it, as you would have seen. I made a mistake in the Variante Villeneuve. I missed the apex at turn 9. Few small margins, but I did about actually that's a lie. I did about nearly 50 laps on this, time trial event, and it was a real big challenge to get the lap hooked up. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and the full lap is unedited on my second channel. I'll leave a link up in the top right if you want to go see it, the hot lap in full speed. But yeah, that's going to be a track guide of Imola and setup as well. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe for more for daily F1 content, and as always, a big shout out goes to the members of the channel for supporting the content. Finally, check out 2 videos on screen if you haven't seen them already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care, and it's goodbye from me.